Guess who's back again, everybody? With my review of Body Parts from 1991, directed by Eric Red and starring Jeff Fahey. Jeff Fahey, who's a criminal psychologist, and he talks with violent murderers and serial killers in prisons, and he's trying to dissect the essence of evil, what makes a man become evil. Unfortunately for him, on his way to the job, he gets into a fatal car accident, of which he loses his arm, and he gets involved in this miracle transplant developed by this doctor who is seemingly a nice person. And unbeknownst to him, he finds out later on in the film upon these strange visions that he gets in his mind from time to time. It just happens to be that his arm was owned by a serial killer, which is always nice and very comforting for a man who has a wife and 2 children, I might add. What I love about this film is how it really examines the idea of, does evil actually live in the flesh, or is evil kind of, is it born out of the being or the man? You know, it's a very interesting and creepy concept for a film. If you really think about this, like, how would you really feel if you lost your arm and you got a new one, and you found out that, like, the arm that you have that you brush your teeth with, that you touch your children, like rub their heads in the morning, or even like if you're involved with a very intimate situation with your significant other, was the hand of someone who, you know, committed these brutal, horrific acts. It's a very horrific idea. And Body Parts really builds on the psychological trauma of what that would actually do to a person. And it's kind of riding that line between, are you actually losing your mind from being traumatized of the idea of this, or is it the actual essence of evil that lives in the flesh of the previous owner of this arm? It's right in that line between, you're not really quite for sure what's going on, but it's just kind of messing with you here and there as Jeff Fahey's personality gradually changes throughout the film. You know, he kind of starts to get maybe a little bit more aggressive, maybe a little bit more short. He's, you know, just having these night terrors. And then it kind of just flat out gets to the point where the arm is just kind of just doing its, its own thing. So, and then it goes to another level. There's actually a really creepy scene in the movie where he's involved in a situation with his wife. And it's really creepy as his hand kind of is like going up the blanket, kind of up the kind of like the side of her arm and her leg, and it just really comes off as really creepy. And Jeff Fahey is such a good charismatic actor that he can really sell it that he has no control over the arm. That's how good of an actor he is. And Fahey is a guy who I've always loved as a performer. I mean, of course, we love him as Duke in Psycho 3, and I believe he was on an episode of Miami Vice, and he's done tons of films over the year. I really wish he became a bigger kind of star and an actor. But, you know, one thing about Fahey is, as everybody knows, is his striking eyes. His eyes are so striking, and he really sells the kindness and kind of the he ultimately sells the desperation in his performance of that he wants to get this thing off of him, you know. And then also, I forgot, we got great supporting players in this film, played by of course Kim Delaney, who was later on NYPD Blue, and she was in a horrible film called Darkman 2: The Return of Durant, which is an awful movie. She's so gorgeous in this movie, and she has a strong performance here. Brad Dourif, Chucky himself, who has always been a magnificent character actor, but here he takes a break from his villain roles, and he actually plays, he kind of plays like the comedic role, who, ultimately might have a fate that was not so pleasant. And also we have the actor Zakes Moquet, I believe is how you say his name, who was in Serpent in the Rainbow, and who is a wonderful actor. I believe he actually is African. If I'm wrong, someone can correct me. And I think he's from South Africa. I could be wrong, but he always has been a very fantastically deep character actor, and he can play evil, really well, and he can play good here. You know, here he plays a police detective, and I always find one of the funniest parts in this movie is where he looks at Fahey and says, "It's okay. It is okay. You're safe with me now." And I remember just thinking, like, okay, wait. Fahey, I believe in this movie, has got to be at least 38 or 40 years old. Zakes Moquet has got to be like 60. And I'm like, what's this dude gonna do? You know what I mean? But he's such a strong actor. He sells that he maybe could possibly help Jay Fahey out. You know what I mean? It goes from a realistic idea to what it would do to you psychologically, and then it blends into like a gothic kind of horror film, and it makes that transition very smoothly, and it almost like it feels like it's one film. Like, it doesn't feel like you have psychological then brutal horror film. It really blends it and balances the two together very, very well, and how subtly it creeps up, and the actors play it completely straight with all seriousness. And even Brad Dourif, I mean, he plays a little bit of comedic in the film, but even he plays it comedically, but like how a real person would be comedic, not slapstick and jokey sarcasm that takes you out of the film. He plays it very real, you know what I mean? Because I kind of seem like Brad Dourif and the other gentleman who has the killer's legs, they both seem like men who are desperate and are just trying to make it after the tragedy that they've been through. Fahey, he's a criminal psychologist, so he wants to dig into what the hell is going on here. The orchestral score. The orchestral score to this is some of the most magnificent pieces of music that I've heard in a horror film. It's just very just loud and really brass and heavy, and it's sympathetic and tender in spots where it needs to be, and then it goes into that gothic horror place when it needs to, and it just all, it's, the music is absolutely beautiful. They're really nice stretches of film where there's actually just images, and you just hear the music, and the music is just very, very loud, and you see like these beautiful, gory, horrific images with this strong, creepy score. And one of my favorite pieces of music is actually in the finale. In the third act, during the final confrontation, this piece of music is just so cool, and the way you could hear the strings, like, oh, it's just, and the expression with Fahey's eyes and other people it's just fantastic. It's really an awesome piece of music. I think they do have the soundtrack released by itself, but I'm not sure where it's at. I'd like to find it somewhere, because it's the music in this movie is beautiful. Other thing I want to talk about with the movie is actually the way it's shot. It's shot with the classic John Carpenter anamorphic scope. It is so beautifully shot, and when I watch a movie like Body Parts, one of the cool things is that I listen to a lot of John Carpenter commentaries from like his earlier movies, you know, Escape, you know, The Thing, Halloween, all those movies. And even when you look at a really small movie like the original Halloween, it's amazing how simple shots look so much huger when you shoot it in anamorphic. It just makes the movie look so huge and wide. And the way the light, the cinematography in this movie combined with the anamorphic lens, the way that the light just streaks across the lens is beautiful. There's shots where cars are coming straight at the lens, and you see the headlights of the car, and they have like this little kind of fuzzy streak around the light. It just looks gorgeous, and it makes the movie feel like it's this big $100 million movie, and then, you know, this is a small horror film. A lot of the color scheme of the movie has like a sterile white hospital look to it. It looks, and I've, you know, and obviously having healthcare experience my own self, a lot of hospitals have that sterile white look to it, and that theme, color wise, cinematography wise, is carried throughout the film. Fahey, a character, has befallen a deadly fate, and there's these police car lights that are like flashing, and there's like a hard light coming in from one angle, and then you got the lights coming from the top of the police cars strobing across their face. It just looks gorgeous, and then you got Fahey's eyes, and it just is gorgeous. And also too, I want to say that they emphasize a lot of like heavy reds, heavy greens, and there's always constant different sources of light coming in at the same time. It just is a beautiful movie. This movie was released around the time that Jeffrey Dahmer was caught. And obviously, we don't need to talk about Jeffrey Dahmer. Those of us who are old enough, and unfortunately those of you who might be younger out there who've been exposed to this horrible man who is now dead, know the explicit graphic nature of his crimes. And because of that, Paramount started to pull advertisements for body parts, particularly in, I believe it's Milwaukee, where Jeffrey Dahmer committed his murders. And that really, Paramount just got shook, and that really, I think, contributed to why the movie was a failure financially, and more people don't know it except for cult audiences. I believe the movie did very well on video, as a lot of movies did back in those days in the early 90s because of the video store era. But, Jeffrey Dahmer's crimes, which had nothing to do with one or the other, but it was just the fact that the film was titled Body Parts, and they felt it was insensitive to the victims of Jeffrey Dahmer's crimes. And, unfortunately, they put that off on the movie, which I don't think was fair at all. So for those of you who haven't seen it, check out Body Parts. So, on that note, if you're someone who wants to overlook Body Parts because of the association of Jeffrey Dahmer of the time, maybe you should just go ahead and watch The Bridges of Madison County. All right, y'all. I'll be back soon with more fun and more movie reviews.